Design and color theory. Today, we're going to learn how to design content for social media, specifically posts, quotes, everything that you appear when you're scrolling up. And then you learn a little bit about color theory because that's going to allow you to understand, that's going to help you understand what's the psychology behind famous brands like Apple, Sony, Coca-Cola, and everything, and how the color affects you as a viewer and as a consumer. As a coach, you can use this to your advantage, make your content pop out, connect with your audience, and then in return, they will be able to enter your offers and become part of your community. Let's get started. The first thing that we're gonna learn about is about social media design, because many people get this wrong and many people overcomplicate it. And yes, there can be beautiful designs, but if you don't understand what's the concepts behind it, you will never be able to really grasp what are the important things and pieces in every social media post. So let's get started. There's 4 aspects of it. There's 4 pillars that I'm gonna teach you right now. The first one is clarity over complexity. So I'm gonna show an example here. As you can see, this is a really simple, elegant post. And now that's a really complex post. And why? See the difference between this one and this one? Right? This one is much easier to read, faster to the eye, you can really understand it. This one is crazy and it gets really confusing. So simplicity is key. You have to ask yourself, okay, can someone understand this under 3 seconds? Are they having to make an effort and try to see if there are typos or if there are errors, if the word is actually the word? Like, this is not a graffiti class where I try to make this the E, right? You want to clearly show that this is what you're trying to do, okay? So that would be step number 1. Always go for clarity. Even if you take more slides, it's better to have more slides which is clear to read than having one big slide where it's just a chunk of content and no one wants to read it because they will slide past by it. Okay, so that's number 1. Now, number 2 is hierarchy and balance. And this is super important because if you have a title that's giant, but then the text is also giant, but then the last little piece that's a little thing, you might not get what you want. If you have everything on the same size, for example, this post, you don't know what's the title, the subtitle, you don't know how your eye should go because your eye is going like all the other places, right? Whereas if you do a title first, that's a little bit bigger, and then the text a little bit smaller, you can use bold fonts or italic fonts to change the contrast. This will allow it to be much easier for people to understand and for people to assimilate what are you trying to say, okay? So different sizes and different fonts or different font styles. So I would, again, and this is going to tie it up back to this, because if you put 5 different fonts, it becomes complex. If you put 5 different sizes, it becomes complex. So it's low fonts, like not many fonts, not many sizes, but do create a variety so you make sure that hierarchy and balance still exists. There was another example of, for example, this design versus this design. Do you see that this design, for example, has much more balance in the text, and this one looks like super weird, like big text, small text, big text, small text, and there's this incoherence, right? So you always want to go to this. And in softwares like Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator, it's easy to achieve this, but also in Canva. So you don't have to be the massive designer to make this happen. This is for coaches who have maybe an hour, 2 hours per week to create the designs. You can easily do this with Canva. So no need to be a super pro designer to make these beautiful things happen, okay? So that's number 1, clarity over complexity, hierarchy and balance. Let's go to number 3, consistency. Have you ever gone to a page that looks like a meme page that just has like quote here, quote there, but looks like a line? And yes, of course, right now it's not so much important to become aesthetic when it comes to the Instagram grid. But if you have consistency, if you have a specific brand, if you have a specific style, people will start recognizing you as, oh, this is this guy. So I love, for example, the consistency that one of the guys that really blew me away with his design skills were Kevin Crenshaw with his designs about love and embodiment and feminine, masculine polarity. So you see this, right? You see that there are squares It has the text square and the photo. And even though it's different photos, the style and the essence, it's always the same, right? And if he's great, there creates a sense of consistency. And for example, one of our clients that we have for John Noel, and here is, you can see that there is consistency. Like every cover is the same, every quote is the same, and there seems to be like this coherence. Also with Genius Network here, also with Preston Smiles, there seems to be a consistency, and it starts to build up authority because people want to go back to something. They like new things, but they also like things that to stay the same. It's a paradox that you have to work on. And when you get started, so that you can get good, don't try to mix in all. You can vary every now and then to maybe try and test something new because maybe the designs is not hitting. And with Preston, we iterated a bunch of designs, but we tested for like 20 designs, then we changed 20 more designs, then we changed. So it's important for you to have testing, but at the same time, be able to keep something going at the same step, okay? And with number 4, it's contrast equals visibility. Oh my God, that has a lot of eyes. So contrast equals visibility. So for example, I can do like this, right? You can see that there's a cross there. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger, right? So bam, I made these 3 balls, okay? And you can see for this example clearly which ones are easier to distinguish between the 2 colors, right? Or the one that's a little bit harder to distinguish because you have black and you also have blue, which are darker colors, which is a little bit difficult. What if instead, for example, I did something like this? Instead of putting the black, I would put the red, right? If I put the red here, you will clearly see it because there is a contrast. So when you're creating social media designs, it's super important that you create the contrast, whether it's with the background, whether it's between titles, or whether it is with different fonts. So for example, when you're doing a design, for example, this one, you see that it clearly has good contrast because the back of the design is black and font is white. But for example, let's see this one where it's harder to read. You can the background, it's kind of mixing with the yellow font. It becomes harder for people to understand. You won't be able to, if you have low visibility and low contrast, you will create again complexity. So it creates this level, and it's this sequence in which you start creating content. Okay, so the most important thing that you always have to focus on is clarity over complexity. Then you go into hierarchy. Then you can go even into contrast. And through that, through doing this in a consistent way, you start creating a social media brand that becomes consistent and you start becoming the authority. So that's step number 1. We will go now into step number 2 with the color view. Color. Okay, so welcome to the next part. And we're gonna go one by one of the colors. You can see the colors there, up here. There we go. Make it up here. There you go. Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna go with each one of the colors. We have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, pink, black, brown, and white. And each one have a specific function when it comes to social media. And again, this is not exact science, but this is being proven through many tests that this tends to be the case. So let's go with red. Red starts with emotion. And remember, when we're talking about color, it's super important that you take this into heart because you are affected by color. You see color, even if you are colorblind in somewhat, there are certain colors that create emotions in you. Specifically number red, because red is the color of blood, red's the color of happiness, Coca-Cola. You see it becomes in your subconscious. So if you want to stand out, that you want to make big emotions, if you want to create buttons of call to actions in your website and in your social media that says click here to join, or comment the word this, or an important news, something to captures immediate attention, you can use color red. Okay, that will be the use case for that. Then we go into orange, and orange, I would say create. Orange is like the cousin of red, but it's more subtle, more sophisticated because it goes bold, it goes big, but it doesn't stand out so much. And it talks about innovation. It talks about energy, sensuality. You can create like different feelings of of pleasure, or the desert, or something that's like a little bit more like ground to earth, and this could be a variation of terracotta or elegant, right? That's orange, and you can use that in your design. And we're gonna go back to designs after we have these things, because with colors we can create also contrast and also create hierarchy. So yellow equals joy. So joy equals yellow equals joy. It's the sun. It's like big, fabulous, really strong in the eyes. So I would not recommend that you use so much of yellow unless your brand has some yellow in it. But again, never like super compromise, because people don't like that color so much. I don't know why. And at the same time, you can use it deliberately with other colors to create a little bit of contrast, and it will pop out. Specifically when you do, for example, thumbnails for social media, you see an example here. The ones that I use, I have a little piece of yellow because it stands out similar to the red one, but it's not as bold, but it still captures attention, especially when it's created in contrast. Green goes into nature, green goes into the eco-friendly movement. This whole thing went bananas with the color green. And everything when it comes to nature, making it more natural, making it more eco-friendly. You're talking about like retreats or rejuvenation. You can start using yellow, green, and when you contrast it, for example, with the pastel colors that are type of orange, a little bit mixed with white, it creates this sort of contrast that it's like elegant, but also in nature. And that's a really good and high profile, high-end type of luxury. Then when it comes blue comes into health and trust. So if we were talking about base pillars, if you want to create calmness, if you want to create balance, if you want to create peace and serenity, that would be blue, because it simulates the ocean. It like calms the mind. And again, there's a difference between using this type of blue versus this type of blue, right? So this type of blue, it's like electric, it's like too shocky. This one is more calm, more relaxing. And the more you practice and understand this concept, the more you're able to see and mix in between. Okay, purple, this purple, it talks about royalty or high-end or luxury in a way. So when you want to think Louis Vuitton, think Lindt, think Rolex. It can also be used for mystery, creativity. So when we're like for Preston's book, we're talking about the spiritual millionaire, the lost for inner abundance. So it's a mysterious thing that you want to become a spiritual millionaire. You want to also stay also in the level of mystery, of magic. So it's super, super powerful to use that. Then pink can be considered a little bit bold, but also a little bit childish or kind or joy. So for example, you can think of a Barbie, you can do different hues of pink, purple, and red, and you can mix in between a little bit of sensuality, a little bit of erotic embodiment type of work that can be considered pink. Never go too much to pink because it's gonna feel like plastic, and Barbie, so you don't want to go into that area. Okay, black goes into elegance, goes into serenity, or like not serenity, but like polarity type of work, like black and white. Either this or that. Modern, elegant. Modern or elegant. That's the type of black that you would use. And with many of the colors, you can use it as the font color, except with some of the darker ones, like for example, the blue or the purple. Using black won't create so much contrast, so it's going to become a problem. Okay? And brown, it's security. It can also be like grounded earth, solid, earthing, everything that comes to like working with the hands or working with the land. This can be considered brown, and it is also shit, and it's also chocolate. So there's a mix in between, but it's a really good color that if you use it correctly, it can be really, really efficient, and it's going to contrast every other color, because not many people know how to actually use color brown. And finally, white's the level of purity, clean, simplicity, making it really proper and really easy for people to read. So when you have and even like this whiteboard, right? The reason why it's white is because it's easier for you to read all the other colors that appear inside. So when you use it, you can use it for, again, for being the canvas, but also I use it specifically when it comes to the videos in social media. I like to put my captions with white with a stroke, right? Because it stands out out of the other backgrounds, because the backgrounds normally have a lot of color and contrast. So if I want to contrast that even better, I would do it with white. And quick tip, it's super interesting that one of the easiest subtitles to read, it's actually a combination between white and black. White backgrounds and black letters, and that also goes to the title. So that's much easier to read, because that's why you can see this super easily more than this and this. Okay, now let's go into the contrast rules here. So when we talk about contrast in social media, again, we talked about before, we can talk about colors, we can talk about fonts, we can talk about sizes, we can talk about designs, we can talk about fonts, we can talk about colors specifically and shapes. But for example, if you took red, orange, or yellow and you mix it with blue, purple, and pink, there's going to be levels of contrast. For example, blue and red are a good contrast. That's why they create purple. Then, for example, blue and orange might be a little harder to create that contrast, that might not look that great, but you can do it. Yellow and green can create a lot of contrast, even though they're matching colors, but you could use it. Then all of these with white can have a good contrast, and all of these, white, red, orange, yellow, and even green, can have a good contrast with black. So make sure you type that down, or you repeat the video so you know what are the contrast combinations. But that's the way for you to really understand a little bit of color theory. And my recommendation, again, to avoid complexity based on what we're talking about before, is only use up to 3 colors when you create your designs for social media. And maybe one primary color, which is around 80% of your design. You see, that doesn't have so much contrast, so that's why you cannot see it. 80% of your design, one color. The color number 1, you can be 20 or 7. You can be 70% of your design in one color, 20% of your design, or 25% of your design the second color, and 5% the color number 3. Okay, and this one could be the most contrasting ones, and this one could become a highlight one. So for example, if you create a white design, right, and you put the primary color being white, you could put a black text, right, but then you could put one sentence being in red, which is the highlight. So you see in hierarchy where would people read it, and they will go into the red one first, and they will start reading the next couple of pieces. So that's it for color theory. I really love this topic because as a painter, I learned a lot about this, and now I'm using it for social media designs. And it's super important for you to practice it and practice combinations, practice seeing and testing what are the different designs, but don't become the perfectionist. The more you practice and put out content, you will actually see, oh, this one went better, this one went well, oh, the contrast was different, the hierarchy was different. And soon by soon, you will be able to create powerful designs that get thousands of likes, thousands of shares, thousands of comments, and you can use them to create things that actually sell for your offerings. So 2 final things: make sure that you check all the other videos. This is video 11. I'm super excited and super grateful that you're able to be with me today and sharing this lesson number 11. And I also want to invite you to subscribe. And if you're a coach that's doing over $20,000 a month in their offers and wants to grow their business, grow their social media, book a call with us below. We can definitely help you. We have a system that allows coaches to grow we have a system that takes away all the effort and time consuming things of doing all these tests and study. We do it for you. And then we share it to social media, and we start selling your offers consistently. So book a call. See you in the next video, and subscribe for